Welcome to today's featured book from OYNYO right here in Burnley Market Hall. Today we're diving into Whit by Iain Banks, a gripping satirical novel that takes us on a journey through a strange religious sect and into the heart of the modern world. If you're ready for a story that blends mystery, humour and deep discussions about belief, this is a book you don't want to miss. Before we dive any deeper into Whit, it's worth taking a moment to talk about the author, Iain Banks. Banks was one of the most distinctive voices in contemporary British literature. Born in Fife in Scotland in 1954, he had a remarkable ability to blend genres, moving seamlessly between literacy fiction and science fiction. In fact, he wrote under two names, Iain Banks for his mainstream novels and Iain M. Banks for his science fiction works. His writing is known for its sharp wit, dark humour and thought-provoking themes. Banks was never afraid to challenge societal norms, whether it was through satirical takes on religion as we see in Whit, or through his more radical political ideas, which often permeated his works. His ability to critique institutions while still crafting engaging and often funny stories made him a unique literacy figure. With Whit, published in 1995, Banks returned to the themes of family, faith and personal growth, using his characteristic humour to take us on a journey into a fictional religious sect that feels both strange and surprisingly familiar. Whit by Iain Banks is a novel that takes us into the world of the Kentrian religious sect, a small isolated community tucked away in the Scottish Highlands. The story revolves around 19-year-old Isis Whit, the elect of God. Within the sect, she's essentially being groomed as the future spiritual leader. For Isis, life within the sect is simple, structured and driven by religious doctrine. The Kentra live apart from modern society, rejecting the technologies and vices of the outside world in order to focus on what they see as a purer way of life. But the peace of this secluded world is shattered when Isis's cousin Morag disappears. Morag had left the sect some time ago to pursue a career as a musician in London, a decision that scandalised their community. Now she's gone missing and Isis is sent out into the corrupt outside world to find her and bring her back. For Isis, the mission is a rite of passage in more ways than one. Raised in isolation, she knows little about the real world beyond the boundaries of the sect. As she leaves behind the familiar hills of the Highlands and ventures first to Edinburgh and then down south, she's immediately overwhelmed by the noise, pace and chaos of the modern world. It's easy to imagine the kind of culture shock she experiences, leaving a quiet, insular environment and suddenly finding herself surrounded by the frantic energy of a city like London. Now we might be based in Burnley, but anybody who spent time in London will know what it's like to feel a little bit out of place in such a sprawling, high-paced environment. For Isis, it's a terrifying and confusing reality check. What makes Whit so interesting is the way Banks writes Isis's journey as both a literal and figurative one. As she searches for her cousin, Isis is forced to confront not just the unfamiliar world around her, but also her deeply ingrained beliefs. Her sheltered life has left her naive, and she struggles with everyday things like handling money, using public transport, and interacting with strangers. At times it's genuinely funny. Banks uses dark humour and satire to highlight the absurdities of both the sex way of life and the world outside of it. As Isis digs deeper into Morag's disappearance, she starts to uncover some uncomfortable truths. Morag's life as a musician has taken her far from the simple, moralistic world of the sect, and the music industry she's now part of is anything but innocent. It's a world of commercialism, manipulation, and vice, far removed from the piety the Luskentrians preach. At the same time, Isis starts to realise that the sect she's grown up in isn't as righteous or pure as she's been led to believe. There are hints of corruption and hypocrisy within its leadership, including from her own grandmother, Salvador Whit, who is the current head of the sect. This discovery shakes Isis to her core. Her faith in the sect's teachings and in her role as the elect of God begins to unravel. What's particularly striking about Whit is the way Banks contrasts these two worlds. On one side we have the insular, tightly controlled and idealistic world of the Luskentrian sect, which prides itself on its moral superiority. On the other we have the chaotic, morally ambiguous and often cynical outside world. As Isis moves between these two worlds, she starts to see the cracks in both. The sect's rigid control over its members stifles individual freedom, whilst the outside world, with all its supposed freedom, often leaves people disillusioned and lost. By the time Isis finds Morag, the novel has transformed into a powerful exploration of identity, belief, and the need to question the systems we're born into. Morag's rejection of the sect's forces Isis to confront her own doubts about the Luskentrian way of life. And ultimately, Isis must decide whether to stay loyal to the community she was raised in or forge her own path. Banks doesn't offer any easy answers. He leaves readers and Isis facing the complexity of life's moral grey areas. Whit is about the search for truth and meaning, but it's also about how difficult and messy that search can be. At its heart, Whit is a story of self-discovery. Through Isis Whit's journey, Banks challenges us to look at our own lives, our own beliefs, and the way we navigate the world. For anyone in Burnley looking for a novel that mixes dark humour, a gripping plot, and deep philosophical questions, Whit is a brilliant, thought-provoking read. It's a reminder that wherever we come from, whether it's a quiet town like Burnley or a secluded religious community in the Scottish Highlands, our search for identity and truth is universal. As Isis navigates her journey between the isolated world of the Luskentrians and the bustling outside world, she begins to realise that what she's been taught isn't necessarily the full truth. In fact, one of the central ideas in Whit is the tension between belief and reality, and how challenging it can be to reconcile the two. As Banks puts it, in the outside world, it's never quite like it is in your imagination. No matter how much you think you know, there's always something unexpected. This journey forces Isis to question the rigid faith she grew up with. As she encounters new people and experiences, she comes to understand that faith is more than just following rules or reciting doctrine. Banks writes, "Faith is about doing. You are how you act, not just how you believe." This realization pushes Isis to reconsider her role as the elect of God, a position that was always more about control than compassion. But it's not just the outside world that's full of challenges. As Isis digs deeper into her family's motives, she learns that the truth isn't always liberating. In fact, it can often be a tool for manipulation. As Banks wryly observes, the truth may not set you free, but used carefully can confuse the hell out of your enemies. This is especially true for Isis as she uncovers the hidden agendas within the sect she once trusted. And yet, despite everything, Banks reminds us that there's always a larger picture. In one of the novel's key moments, Isis reflects on how small her world had once seemed. The world is a lot bigger than you think it is. This simple truth is something that resonates for anyone who's ever left a small community, a small town, or a small life and stepped into something larger and more complex. For us here in Burnley, it's easy to relate to that feeling. Moving between worlds, whether literally or figuratively, can be overwhelming but also eye-opening. As the novel progresses, we're reminded that sometimes the stories we grow up with feel safe, even when they're limiting. In the end, perhaps it's safer to stick with the stories we were born into, Banks writes, and whilst they might seem true for some, Isis ultimately realises that her path lies beyond those boundaries, in a place where she can define her own beliefs and make her own choices. But it's not just about rejecting old beliefs, it's about finding new ways to live. In one of the novel's more poignant moments, Banks reflects on the human condition, saying, "What we need are fewer people who want to be right and more people who want to be kind." This is a powerful reminder that regardless of our beliefs, it's kindness and empathy that make the biggest differences in the world. And finally, in a more reflective, perhaps darker tone, Banks writes, "Sometimes I think the world is just a machine designed to break us." This quote captures the sense of disillusionment that Isis faces as she comes to terms with the complexities of the outside world. But ultimately, her journey is one of resilience as she navigates both the personal and philosophical challenges that arise. Iain Banks's Whit is a novel packed with strange details and vivid contrasts. In the world of the Luskentrian sect, telephones are banned, families bury deep secrets, and the lines between truth and falsehoods blur constantly. It's a place where kinship and betrayal are two sides of the same coin, and where religious doctrine is wrapped in rituals as obscure as herbal cigarettes and compact discs. A world trapped in its own peculiar logic. As Isis Whit ventures out from the sect's rural stronghold into the cityscapes of modern Scotland and England, she encounters all the things her faith warned her about: technology, fast-paced life, and the chaos of the norms. But Banks doesn't stop at the simple culture clash. His sharp observations touch on religion, cultism, and the weird hand gestures that make up the sect's rituals. Small but significant acts that bind its members together. And then there are leap years, events that the sect sees as full of hidden significance, a reoccurring reminder of their skewed view of time and the outside world. On her journey, Isis encounters a whole spectrum of people: the unsaved, the wretched, the insane, the obtuse, the reject, the clinker, the chaff, the cluttered, the rank, the passives, the benighted, and the asleep. Each group represents the sect's need to categorise and judge everyone outside their own small world, reinforcing their rigid, insular beliefs. But as Isis steps further into this new reality, she starts to see the flaws in these divisions, realising that life can't be so neatly divided between the chosen and the damned. There are moments of bizarre humour too, as Isis tries to make sense of the outside world, like window shopping for the first time, trying to understand the allure of technical ecstasy, a band, not a spiritual concept, or questioning the cautiousness of kangaroos. These strange and often hilarious moments pepper her journey, giving the novel its quirky, satirical edge. But the modern world isn't all curiosity and confusion. Isis also faces darker realities, from gangs of racist pamphleteers and flashes of violence, all whilst grappling with flashbacks of her faith. With every new experience, she's forced to question what she's being taught, to untangle the difference between loyalty to her sect and loyalty to herself. If you're intrigued by Whit by Iain Banks and want to explore more thought-provoking reads, come visit us at OYNYO in Burnley Market Hall. If you're intrigued by Whit by Iain Banks and want to explore more thought-provoking reads, come visit us at OYNYO in Burnley Market Hall. Whether you're into cult fiction, contemporary classics, or something a little out of the ordinary, we've got something for every kind of reader. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the shop.